Welcome back, everyone, to the Fox Local Stream. I'm Marla Tejas. A recent statewide poll shows California voters are sharply divided on a proposal to levy a 5% tax on billionaires. This is to fund health care. UC Berkeley surveyed more than 5,000 California registered voters in both English and Spanish. Here's a look at those results. 52% of those surveyed support the tax, while 33% oppose it. 15% were undecided. Now, the measure is sharply divided among party lines. 72% of Democrats support the billionaires tax initiative, while 72% of Republicans are opposed. A majority of those with no party preference support it, with 51% showing their support. Now, today we are going to examine all the issues surrounding this proposed initiative. Joining me to do that, we have two gentlemen. First is Scott Ellis, a Silicon Valley businessman who is a member of Patriotic Millionaires, a national organization of wealthy Americans who support a fair tax system. And we also have Robert Lapsley, president of the California Business Roundtable, which represents employers and businesses in California. The Roundtable is opposed to this wealth tax measure. Good to have you both. Yeah, this is definitely a very debatable topic here. Scott, I'm going to start with you and tell me why you support this.
I think, like many of the other patriotic millionaires that are part of the organization that I am a member of, we care about this country. We want to have a thriving economy and a thriving democracy, and we're extremely concerned about the impact of concentrated wealth and power and the fact that wealthy individuals can undermine democracy and undermine markets, can control media outlets. And we think the most important thing we can do as a country is to change the tax code to limit the accumulation of excessive wealth. And we think this tax policy is a good step in that direction.
So taxing 5% on $1 billion would equal $50 million, just like that. Robert, why is Scott wrong?
Well, again, we appreciate his patriotism. We just have a different perspective when it comes to policy and the long-term direction of the state. So first and foremost, we're the highest tax state in the country. And what we have to be looking at is where we are headed with our tax system as a whole. It's not about taxing one group of people. Californians are getting taxed everywhere. We need comprehensive tax reform in this state to be able to look at how our economy has changed and look at how we provide long-term stable revenue streams to be able to fund the services that we need for the state as a whole. But I can tell you, for one thing, with this billionaire tax that we're talking about today, is this measure takes money away from schools. 5% of this money that they're proposed to raising would only go to schools. Everything else goes to other places. So there's a lot of problems with how this is drafted. It's not going to work. But most importantly, it's not the right approach. We need comprehensive tax reform moving forward to be able to help California.
You know, we've already seen, Scott, billionaires like an Elon Musk take him and his company out of the state because he's tired of the taxes. And, you know, I'm looking down at my tablet here just to get these stats right, that as of 2023, the top 5% of earners in California paid 60% of the state's personal income taxes, which is the main source of the state's general fund. This is all according to CalMatters, their statistics here, Scott. So if, in fact, this were to go through, their argument is that we'll lose the billionaires who are funding the state of California as it is, and that's just going to backfire.
I mean, I think, honestly, I agree with Robert. We need a new approach to tax, but I think we need to start having a more honest and accurate conversation about wealth in our society. We actually don't talk about wealth very much. We don't do it very accurately. And fundamentally, the question we should be asking is, how much wealth do people have? How much is enough? And what should we do when people accumulate excessive wealth? Median household wealth in the United States is less than $0.2 million. And again, when we talk about wealth, we shouldn't talk about thousands and billions. We get confused. Use millions. Half of all American households have less than $0.2 million, less than 200,000. A billionaire who, say, has $10 billion has $10,000 million. Most people never get $1 million I would argue strongly that we could define financial success for a household as $30 million. This tax only affects people who have over $1,000 million. And I think that's the conversation we should really be having here.
I mean, a lot of people would listen to Scott, Robert, and say, I mean, can you argue with that?
Absolutely, we can, respectfully, because that's not who we are, and particularly in California's economy. Our economy is based on innovation. People come here because they want to be able to create businesses, they want to be able to create products, they want to change the world. And when you do that, you want to have a system where you know, right, that your ambition is unlimited and so are your rewards. Because when you make that kind of money, you are creating more jobs, you are taking that money and you're investing it back and creating other companies. So all of that money that we're talking about is being used for the good for our economy. If you have a system where you come here and say, create a company, but the most money you can ever have in this world is $30 million, those people are not coming to California. The people who are creating our innovation, they're going to go to so many other states in this country, as they are currently moving because of this proposed tax. We are losing hundreds of these people. I can tell you that definitively because we are talking to them. And right now, there's already a study out from Stanford that shows not only are we not going to raise the money from this proposed tax, it's going to cost the state $24 billion from the lost revenue of people moving. So it's some folks believe it may be well-intentioned. It's not going to have the impact it should, and it's the unintended consequences that is going to hurt California.
Yeah, so the tax would, and correct me if I'm wrong, the tax would apply to about 200 taxpayers with a net worth of over $1 billion as of January 1 of this year. It excludes real estate, pensions, and retirement accounts. This is opposed by, obviously, the Roundtable there, of course, but also Governor Gavin Newsom. He's outgoing. He is against this. One of the man who wants to replace Governor Newsom in Sacramento is billionaire Tom Steyer. He is for this proposed initiative. I want to make it clear to everybody watching that this is not currently, it's not a done deal yet. This is not yet a for sure thing on the November ballot. What needs to happen is proponents must submit approximately 875,000 valid signatures by June 24th of this year to qualify for the ballot. Scott, do you have any indication, or are you in the know of how that signature mission is going right now?
Not specifically for the signature mission, but what I will tell you is conversations in California and around the country are happening about excessive wealth in a way they weren't several years ago. Just in the last few years since the COVID pandemic, the wealth of the wealthiest people in this country has skyrocketed while everyone else has suffered. And Marla, to your point, we're talking about 200 people in California who will be affected. And they are working so hard that they don't even want it on the ballot. And I think the real question for all of us is how much wealth, which really means how much power do we want our fellow citizens to have? And we need to talk honestly about that and decide whether we're okay with it.
And Robert, are you a part of the, obviously you're opposing this strongly, but in terms of, out there getting signatures, there's the supporters out there doing that. Are you actively, I'm drawing a blank, out there saying, no, we're not in support of this, don't sign this?
So we have a fully formed effort that is moving forward. We already have over 150 groups in opposition. We have a huge coalition that's being built from left to right. It's a very progressive coalition. And if I could, so you will see if we can beat this. You showed the polling. 52% is not a good place to start for this. They should be like 62 to 65%. People have serious questions about this. And this is why. The concentration issue of power is really not about the billionaires. It's about the public employee unions in the state. They are creating the problems that we have in this state. And they are the ones who are driving the taxes, because there's no discussion about how we limit our spending, spend it wisely, try and create a state that's more affordable for everybody and grow jobs and investment at the same time. That is not coming from the people who they are targeting. The real groups we need to look at, not the private unions, the public employee unions, SEIU, CTA, and others who are driving these tax efforts and just want to tax more and more without talking about how we spend our money more wisely or look at how we can take money from one program and use it more effectively in another. None of that is happening in Sacramento.
Scott, as we near the end of this discussion, we have a couple minutes left. I just want to get your final thoughts before we let you go.
I mean, fundamentally, the question is for all Americans, how do we feel about this current state of affairs? We have individuals who are contributing tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to political campaigns. And the question is, are you worried? I think my vote should count as much as the next person's. I worry if someone spends $10 million on an election, their vote gets amplified more than mine. And I would also say that the tax we're talking about will in no way affect the lives of these people it is addressing in this current state. They have over $1,000 million. Think about how many million dollars you have and decide whether you think it's appropriate to ask them to help us build a better society
and
together.
if they choose to leave California?
Well, I think I would say, first of all, if they choose to leave, I want people to be able to move where they want. California is a pretty darn great place. And by the way, research has been done in New York City very recently and other cities. It's a nice talking point and it definitely attracts eyeballs. But if you look at the tens of thousands of millionaires in New York City, when taxes were raised there was a lot of chatter. Wealthy people move less than poor people. So frankly, people don't move. The data shows it.
And the argument that, you know, hey, why should people who are successful and good at making money have to pay 5% of their wealth?
I think the key question we should ask is, what is financial success? Like my other patriotic millionaires, I want people to be financially successful. $30 million is an enormous amount of money. Never have to work again, multiple houses. Let's define what financial success means. And if you want to move it up to $100 million, I'm fine with that. Does anyone really need more than $100 million? It doesn't cultivate success. It's not about money. It's about power.
All right. And your final thoughts, Robert?
And that power and the same amount of spending is coming from the public employee unions. That's why they control the legislature. That's why California is unaffordable in the current policies that we have. So if we're going to talk about this discussion, and it is a discussion I think that some folks want to have for 2028 in the presidential election, then we need to include the public employee unions and putting a limit on them as well if there's ever going to be a limit on us. But the bottom fundamental issue here is this is wrong. You don't attract people to create an economy in California if you tell them what they can make and what they can spend. And our economy will crater if we ever pass a policy like that and tell people what they can and can't do. It's as simple as that. And the aspect of what we have to focus on is comprehensive tax reform. We're doing it the wrong way.
Well, when I drew blank there, I was trying to ask you, Robert, if you were campaigning actively against it. Campaigning, that's the word that I couldn't think of all words. My goodness. So I appreciate you rolling with the punches with me here on the Fox Local Stream. Scott Ellis, he is a Silicon Valley businessman. He is a member of the Patriotic Millionaires. Thank you so much, Scott. And then Robert Lapsley, president of the California Business Roundtable, opposed to the billionaires tax measure. We'll see if there's enough signatures collected to see if it in fact ends up on the November ballot, and California voters will be tasked with answering that question. So Robert and Scott, thanks so much. It was a really interesting conversation. All right, I'm Marla Tejas in the Fox 11 studios in West Los Angeles. We'll have more for you in just a couple of minutes. Quick break here on the Fox Local Stream.